anything?
I don't hear
Okay.
anything.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Okay. This is our podcast. We're going to discuss today why we believe intimate partner violence occurs. And I'll start it off. I think that intimate partner violence is something that is common. Do I know why it occurs? I think a lot of times it's just unresolved issues in people's life. A lot of it can be learned behaviors or might have been grew up in a home that was abusive or not abusive. We could be a person have been neglected. And I think that anger is an emotion that people are familiar with because it's easy to be angry. It's kind of easy to express yourself in that way, um, because I feel like from my own experience that when people are angry, it's a denial of reality. Like they're not, really like looking at reality. It's like for what it really is, and a lot of times denial of reality is meaning that they're not in acceptance with whatever's going on in their life. And that's just my opinion, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I agree. I think
interesting.
it's a lot of like what you see growing up and like how that can evolve to some unhealthy behaviors. And then it just goes into for both sides. Because for like the survivor point of view, it could be, oh, this behavior towards me is okay because I've seen it happen before and not really recognizing the warning signs. And then like for the abuser, again, they think it's okay because they've seen it before.
Yeah.
1000%.
And sorry.
You're good. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I agree with Regina about anger being easy when it comes to a lot of emotions, people not wanting to accept or sit with uncomfortable things. And so anger is just the easiest way for them to express it or get rid of it, or blaming can be easier as well, blaming it on your partner or someone else. Yeah, it's just easier in a lot of ways than to just actually fully sit and accept what you're feeling or what's going on.
Definitely. I think in some ways it makes you might feel weaker to actually express your emotions in a healthy way. And like
Right.
anger is just that kind of scapegoat. I'm like, okay, this is easier.
Yeah. I know also we had to look at another podcast. I don't know if you guys remember. I don't remember if it was from this class or a different class, but it was this woman, Bell Hooks, who did a podcast on why she thinks men use violence against women. And her theory kind of talked about how men are taught by society to demand what they want and use dominance and control to get what they want, even from the point when they're children. That's how men are kind of taught to treat people. So I
Mhm.
thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And the last point that I'd like to make is that um for like I said, a lot of times people are angry at the situation, not the people that's in their life, but they're angry at the situation and they don't know how to control it, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like I said, anger sometimes is the first emotion we all feel, and uh if we're not like emotionally healthy, it's easy, I believe, to act out in that manner. I don't think people who abuse others are just bad people. I think that their reaction to life is bad, you
Right.
know.
Mm,
So,
Yeah.
I
I
think
think
there's a lot of like, oh, I'm so sorry.
you're good. Go. No,
Okay,
you
I
can
think
go.
there's a lot of like power dynamics that are the
mhm.
issue, and that's why it occurs, is because one partner wants to be controlling of money or controlling of this, and it kind of overlaps into taking over somebody's whole life, and then that just goes into different dynamics.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was gonna say, whenever Emily, you were talking about men kind of being socially like told, oh, you have to demand things. I think also a lot of men are, statistically speaking, I'd say men are more commonly abusers than women, especially
Mhm.
when it comes to physical abuse. But men, from the time that they're very young, they're told, well, men don't cry, boys aren't sensitive, boys aren't this, boys really the only big emotion a lot of boys are allowed to have is anger. So yeah, I wanted to add that because I feel like that's where a lot of that can come from as well.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Well, we'll wrap that part up and then we'll discuss and talk about and reflect on the simulation experiences offered and enforced. And if anybody wants to start off on that, you're more than welcome to. How you reflect on how the simulations are.
I think my first thought when doing the simulation was I noticed that society tends to have a pattern of how they view issues that are that only women experience or primarily women experience. Like they tend to have a certain attitude about it. And this is like with all women's issues, like not even just domestic violence. Like in one of my other classes, we're doing a research study on prostitution. And the first like reaction that people have is, oh, well, they're sluts, they're whores. And there's such a negative stigma surrounding that when that industry is created and consumed by men.
Mm,
But yet somehow women are still blamed for that problem. And it's the same thing with domestic violence. The first thing you hear is, oh, well, why don't they just leave? It's their fault for
mhm,
staying in that relationship. And it's like, it's just not proactive. It's
mhm.
just, and it hinders progress for those women to get help when society views women's issues that way and just continues to blame the victim.
Mhm. Well, my initial reaction to the simulations were not very emotional, because I have worked with real life situations. In my field of work, I've had to um, do a recovery coaching with some women or men because I feel like if believe it or not, men are getting they're being abused in the beginning, and a lot of times they turn out to be the abusers because women, we are emotional, and a lot of us tend to put our hands on men if something happened, and it's like this our first initial reaction is to put our hands on them. So I think that a lot of the concept of is like it's majority like women. I've seen some women that are very aggressive when it come to men. Now, if the man turns around and retaliates, it's like it looks even worse, for the man, but I've seen that it's a lot of the situations are uh where women are abusive too, it's just but the simulations for me, the ones that I seen, I didn't understand. I have never seen a lot of the younger generation that's being abused. That was new to me. Like I haven't seen where a lot of teenagers in high school were being abused. Like that was a new experience to me. I didn't know that occurred so much as it did now. Now I do know, of course, since we did a lot of the simulations, I was like, wow, I didn't know that they did that, you know. So,
I think for me, it opened up the door to exploring like the emotional abuse and physical abuse because I feel like you point it out all in as physical abuse, but emotional abuse is a lot of the issue as well, especially whenever it's like women doing it or whatever. And I think they really just opened my mind up to what it does to both parties and how that can just kind of change over time, more negative.
mm-hmm,
I also think it was interesting to see that like it's really up to the individual. And I feel like some people don't think it's like that. You would think it's like an easy answer, but it really is an individual experience with so many intersecting problems or issues that are going on. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would say the thing that stuck out to me the most, I'm not remembering the person that I chose in the simulation, but um, there were stops, I guess, she
Yeah.
made along the way of people trying to intervene or
Mhm.
trying to help, and just the stuff they were offering was not working for her and for her kids.
Mhm.
And so it just really made me think. I was like, is there other things that we should be doing, that we should be knowing about how best to help people get out of these situations? Because especially with kids, it's such a
Mhm.
difficult position to be in, with like financial dependence and all that stuff. And so it was just, it kind of made me think for a second. I was like, okay, wait, these things that we're saying, oh, well, we're trying to help them, we're trying to do this, these aren't really working. We need to figure out better ways to actually help them and make a difference in getting them out safely.
I think to add to that, I saw a lot of like, it was like a band-aid to this big problem. And it's like, where can
Right.
we find an overall fix with this?
Mm-hmm.
So
True.
do you guys think that there is like something that you could advocate for that particular situation? Like what idea would come up if you were to, like have a fix? What would that idea look like?
I think that they need to involve law enforcement
Mm.
in social work way more, because my dad used to be a police officer, and I can't tell you how many times he was responding to domestic violence situations that were just not being helped, because law enforcement aren't trained on those
Mm,
situations. They don't know what to do. They're just trained to
Right.
take over the situation and enforce the law. They're
mhm,
not taught on de-escalation. They're not taught on mental health. Like, they have no idea what they're doing when it comes to
mhm,
that.
mhm,
So I just feel like social workers and law enforcement really need to come together more, because law enforcement has all the funding and all the resources that social work doesn't really have,
mhm.
and yet
Right.
we're not really collaborating as much as we should.
Right, because
Definitely. I
they
agree.
are the officers are the letter of the law. So it's not
Right.
like they get emotionally involved and feel like, because they have to go by the law. Because a lot of times domestic situations, they can't just go and arrest right away. Like they have to, it's like I know because I was personally involved, it's like
Hmm.
they have to serve this person and say that they can't come around you, but you might die first,
Mm-hmm.
It's like he might see you before the police you see him. And
Right.
so it is. I think that having something like that that's more interactive, especially with social work, where you can intervene and I think that they're working on it. I think that they do have some programs that they try to advocate, more strongly, especially when it comes to domestic violence, because so many people are losing their lives, right now. Kids and families, whole families are being killed.
Yeah.
So, but overall, this was a great experience for me, you know. So,
Yeah, it's
but
been such a learning experience. I
yeah.
think that's what's been good about it. It's really opened me up to kind of understanding more of what is truly going on, and like you were saying, figuring out ways to do more for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Definitely.
yeah. Well, ladies, that comes to the end of our podcast. I want to thank everybody for participating, and I hopefully we get a perfect score.
Yeah.
And I will stop the recording now. Let me see. Stop recording.